Anytime you put Howard in the mix, makes you feel good. If he says he likes you, you're in good shape. Good to have Colin Schmeling here as well. Always making fun of Torrey. More with him momentarily. All right, let's go through a couple things here as far as the NBA goes from last night. A couple of the games. First off, Minnesota looks shot. I've watched some of that. Minnesota, they look a little tired. They look a little beleaguered. Last night, they were out of the game in the second quarter. Their spirit was noticeably sagged. You looked like they felt they couldn't win. They had a chance in game one. They played okay in game one. They didn't win the game. Last night, a lead early, then they collapsed. Minnesota looks like a beaten down, worn out basketball team. I mean, that's as simple as that. You know what I get the impression with Minnesota? You get the impression he coaches every game like game 7. You get the impression right now that maybe they're a little worn out of Thibodeau. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. They had a pretty good regular season. They obviously, ran into a bad draw with Houston, which they got the bad draw because of the idea that Butler missed 23 games, 17 at the end of the year. They did beat Denver to get into the postseason, but they look disinterested right now. Thibodeau can wear you out. He's a great coach. X's and O's, and he every game is significant to him, but he does look like he has worn them out a bit, and they were flat as a pancake for the most part on that game last night. And Houston wins the game going away, and what did Harden score, 18 points? Was he 2 for 15 or 2 for 16 from the floor? 2 for 18 from the floor. Maybe they even didn't score. I thought we had 12 points. Maybe that was it. 12 points. So they lose by 20 to Houston, and Harden is 2 for 18 from the floor at 12 points. They lose by 3 to Houston, and Harden scores 44. Well, you figure out the NBA if you can. If I told you before the series began that in game 1 Harden would score 44, Minnesota would say, well, we lost the game by 100. If I told you in game 2 that Harden was 2 for 18 from the field and scored 12 points, you figured you'd have a chance. And the exact opposite happened in both scenarios. So Minnesota right now, I would be surprised if they win a game against Houston. Houston and Golden State's going to be a hell of a series. Houston, you know what Houston does? I mean, they play off the two guards, especially Harden. They put all their three-point shooters in the corners. They got Gordon in one corner. They got Arizi in another corner. Here comes Tucker in another corner. Gerald Green last night has a huge game. Would put him somewhere, too, around the three-point line. And, you have to double Harden. Sometimes you got to be careful with Paul. And then you spread the court out and you have Harden do what he wants to do. And then he dishes out to the corners or back to the top of the key. And if you take that away and guard Harden one-on-one, you know what he's going to do then? He's going to play alley-oop basketball with Capella. I mean, that's what he's going to do. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. They throw a lot of alley-oops to Capella. He scores 1 million points that way. Every basket he gets is around the hoop. Harden is good at going to the basket. He's got big range with his three-pointer. We don't know what's in his gut in the big game. That we do not know. He has shown us in big games that the gut has been lacking, and there's no getting away from that. Last year, San Antonio, Miami there for Oklahoma City, 2 years ago, Golden State. He has shown you that he has a propensity to lay down and fall apart when the money is on the line. Now, in this series, he's been fine. And the next series against Utah or Oklahoma City, he'll be fine. Against Golden State, we will see. So that's the scenario as far as the Rockets are concerned. Minnesota looks a little worn out. They look a little fatigued from battling so hard to get into the postseason. Butler's not 100%, and I do wonder if Thibodeau has worn them out mentally a little bit. They were bad last night. Not in the game. That was nothing to watch, basically, for 2.5 quarters. The Utah-Oklahoma City game was a very, very good NBA game. Utah deserved to win. They were the better team. Utah fell off there in the third quarter, and they got back in the game, so they showed you some resolve. They were down. They were up 9 many a time early, and then they fell behind by maybe as much as 11. It may have been 79-68, but it may have been 9, but I think it was 11. And they came back and won the game not going away, but they won the game in the last minute or so with a 2-possession lead, and they ended up winning the game by 7. Hell of a win by Utah. Mitchell can score for them in big spots. They don't have a lot of offense, Utah. Utah is a team that's got a bunch of good players, and they run a nice system. But in fourth quarters, in big games, Utah has to go to Mitchell to score. And last night he scored 13 points in the fourth quarter and made many a basket, none of them three. A lot of them driving to the basket, and he got fouled a lot and made his free throws. Utah has given Oklahoma City something to think about. Oklahoma City is an enigma, is what Oklahoma City is. Some days they looked unbeatable. Game 1, George had 36, Westbrook had 29, and Anthony had 15, and you couldn't have beaten them if you tried. And then last night, they have to turn the ball over all over the place. Westbrook is controllable. George is indifferent to the game. He only had 19. Anthony had a bad ball game. And, Adams is their second-best player. And they ended up losing the game going away. They're a very weird team. I don't know whose fault it is. They're just erratic, especially offensively. And last night, right from the get-go, Utah was better. They're up 9-0. Then they got caught. But, Utah, you just felt from start to finish in 48 minutes that Utah last night was the better team. Minnesota, I don't think is going to win a game. I think Utah and Oklahoma City is going to play 7. I think that OKC's got too much individual talent not to win a game in Utah. So I think they're going to come back 2-2. They'll split the next 2, and then we'll be there for a game 7. I would think Utah and OKC will play a 7th game in OKC in whatever that game is. It's about a week and a half. I should give you the exact day. Because that would be a big game. That's what I saw last night with those two. We talked about Cleveland already, so there's nothing else for me to tell you about the Cleveland-Indiana game. Let me give you the NBA with those two series, Cleveland, Indiana, and the Utah-Oklahoma City. Let me give you where they are as far as the game schedule is concerned, because I'll be interested too. Okay, the Oklahoma City-Utah game 7 is a week from Sunday. Boy, they take 15 days to get their series. My God. Is a week from Sunday. They will play Game 7 in Oklahoma City on the 29th of April. That'll be a must-watch if they play Game 7. The Cleveland-Indiana Game 7 is also that Sunday, the 29th. Wow. Look at the schedule here right now for that 29th. Toronto-Washington is not going to play a 7th game, so forget them. Boston and Milwaukee probably not going to play a 7th game. Forget them. Philadelphia and Miami could play a 7th game. Game 7 is Saturday night, the 28th. Cleveland, Indiana are Game 7. Houston, Minnesota will not play Game 7, so forget them. Golden State's not going to play Game 7 against the Spurs, forget them. Portland and New Orleans will play Game 7 on Saturday, the 28th. So they have 2 chances for 2 Game 7s, and those chances will be the Oklahoma City, Utah, and Cleveland, Indiana. And I think they might get 2 Game 7s, and both those games will be the Sunday, the 29th of April, and that will be a big sports night. You get OKC, Cleveland will play at 3:30, and OKC will play at TNT at night. That's how they work that. So unless ABC's got both games that day, I'm not positive. I would think TNT's got a night game at 7:30, 8 o'clock. That would be a good sports night. That 2 nights Sunday night. Now, in the hockey in the Game 7s, if you look at it right now, the Game 7 possibilities, and there's not that many of them, Columbus, Washington play Game 7 next Wednesday. The Bruins and Leafs play Game 7 next Wednesday. So you might have 2 Game 7s next Wednesday in the NHL, the 25th. I would think, and Colin would know better than me, they'll play one of those Game 7s at 7 and the other Game 7 at 8. 1 hour difference, not a half hour. Toronto at Boston, Columbus at Washington. 1 at 7, 1 at 8. 2 Game 7s. Is that fair?
Game 7 you're talking about?
Yeah, Game 7, if those 2 series go 7th games, Washington, Columbus play next Wednesday. Boston, Toronto play next Wednesday. Both right now have a TBA. I would think that the Columbus game would be at 8 and the Bruins game would be at 7. Would that be correct?
They might want the Bruins at 8.
And Columbus at 7?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. They might. But they would stagger it by an hour, right?
I would, yeah.
Not
the
a
half an hour is not that bad, but I still would do. I would do an hour. Whether they do it, I don't know.
I would think they do an hour. And the rest of the NHL postseason is a disaster in this first round. You got 2 sweeps already, and you got the other series all at 3-1. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of been a
a
dud.
Yeah, it's been bad. 13 after the hour. Get your calls in. We continue here on Mad Dog Unleashed.